I'm going to bring up to the stage some incredible female founders and CEOs who have been in this space for a long time. They are here to talk to us about full spectrum blockchain, anything and everything from founders and CEOs that you've been wanting to hear. We have Crystal Rose. She's the founder and CEO of Sensei, who a lot of you probably know, who I was talking about a little bit earlier. She's been coding and developing her whole entire life. We also have Emily Bush. Come on up. Emily, co-founder of Women of Crypto, also one of the co-founders of CIS, has her own fund in the blockchain and crypto space. We also have Sarah Austin. Come back on up here, Sarah. We heard from Sarah earlier today. Sarah is the CMO of Soma Open Network. We have Kelly Weaver, the one and only. She's the founder and CEO of Melrose PR, who's going to be leading us in this discussion. And we have Jessica Versteg. She is the founder and CEO of Paragon. I'm so excited to hear what Jess has to share with us. Paragon is a few things. It's a workspace, it's a co-working space, and it's also a transparency solution for sustainability in cannabis. So I'm going to pass it off to Kelly and grab you some more mics.
Do we want to end right at 5?
Okay. All right, great.
So thank you so much, Allison. Real pleasure to be here and such an honor to be up here with all these talented women. I'm Kelly Weaver. I'm the CEO of Melrose PR. We are a mostly women-led communications agency based here in Los Angeles. And we specialize in blockchain and crypto projects. And then I also host a podcast called Crypto Token Talk. And I'm here to introduce my panelists, so I'm going to pass it off to Crystal Rose. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Kelly. I'm Crystal Rose, the CEO and co-founder of Sense, and the Sense team is here today. We'll be at the conference this whole next couple of days, and we're also hosting the opening party, so I know everybody's been sitting in their seats for a long time, and I just want to let you know that you're invited. We'd love to see you. I'm also the co-founder of CIS with Emmy Bush and other amazing women. It's I'll let Emmy talk to that a little bit more, but Sense is building a decentralized messenger. We're a communications company, and we started 4 years ago as an AI-based communications platform, and we're now leveraging blockchain. So I am very excited to talk about blockchain and crypto.
Hey guys, my name is Emily Bush. I'm a general partner at a fund called Decentra Capital. And I also am the co-founder of CIS, which is the first female-founded mining company on EOS. We've probably seen a couple of us around today. And then I also sit on the founding team of a project called Versus, which is building a 3D spatial protocol.
All right, it's great to be on a panel with you ladies. My name's Sarah Austin, and I gave a keynote earlier. I am the co-founder and CMO of Soma Open Network. Soma is like Telegram or WhatsApp, but we're the largest for the Arab-speaking world with 85 million users and 6 million daily active users. And we have a crypto wallet and a cryptocurrency called Seeds on our application. It is purely a utility token, and we have not had an ICO.
I got it. Hi guys, I'm Jessica Versteg. I'm the founder and CEO of Paragon. Paragon is kind of split up into two things. One is real estate. We have a co-working space for cannabis startups to work from, and they pay their rent in our crypto. And the second thing we have is tech on the blockchain. It tracks cannabis from seed to sell, creating this immutable and trustable ecosystem for people wanting to use cannabis, so you can finally know what you're actually putting in your body.
Awesome. Thank you, ladies. Can you speak a little bit about what led you to where you are today, a little bit about your journey to where you are?
Sure, I'm happy to start. Let's go back all the way to AOL, if we have some time. I started coding when I was very young. I was 11, and I only bring that up because I learned how to code in a chat room, through an anonymous person. And I watched the evolution of the internet as we layered in identity. And we've come full circle, and anonymity is very important to us today. And so I've founded a series of companies, started as a teenager, including a digital agency, and moved into the startup world very passionately, attending events and hackathons. I failed my first startup. I succeeded and sold my next startup. And now we are working diligently with a big value proposition. So I've gone through a lot of different sectors in media and in technology. When I went through ad tech, I learned a lot about what is happening to the privacy and value of human data. And that has led us to where we are today. So blockchain is really the foundational core for me of the first time that we're going to see sovereignty on the internet. And it's the first time that we're repairing the internet. We've watched it for 2 decades, starting from this fledgling, very fun, free system. And now, I know a lot of people think of the blockchain world and crypto world as anarchy, but actually it's the most organized we've ever seen these systems before, and the most secure. So I'm really excited because I feel I've gone a full circle journey, and this is really the time. I know everyone's using this like maybe Web 3.0 term. Don't hate me if you hate the cliche, but it is really the next big evolution. So I'm excited that we're all here, we're building it, and really we're kind of the early adopters of the space.
I also feel like everyone has a different definition of what Web 3.0 is, if you polled the crowd. So my background actually is I'm a biomedical engineer by trade. I only really practiced that for about a year, working at the National Institute of Health. And then I actually transitioned to real estate for about a decade, and did pretty much everything under the sun except for development. So I built a boutique hotel, built a couple brokerage companies, and then most recently I sold billion-dollar buildings in Manhattan. So I sold part of the Empire State Building, 11 Madison, the Helmsley Building. And then I took some time off, had a successful startup, had a failed startup, and it's an important road to go down. And then found this space, and like probably most people here, I went into a rabbit hole where I basically didn't do anything but just eat, sleep, and breathe this. Because I found it so fascinating, just that people could make up currencies and that all of a sudden other people would start using them and there would just be natural adoption. But what I also found really interesting was actually the underlying technology behind it. And I happened to be living with actually a good friend of ours and also a founder of CIS at the time, and she had this just absolutely crazy story how she got into the space, which was she was at a child's birthday party, and she was talking to a guy at the party, and he was like, "Oh, have you heard of this thing called Bitcoin?" And she started talking to him more and more about it, and she was like, "Cool, where do I buy it?" And he was like, "Oh, you have to go on mylocalbitcoin.com." So she did that, and she ended up meeting a random guy in a Starbucks who handed her a hard drive. This was probably back in 2011, and didn't look at it until about 2 or 3 years ago. Until she met Brock. And then she opened it up and was like, "Oh wow, okay, this is really appreciated since I originally bought it." Which I just found is one of the most fascinating stories, because you have a ton of people that have been in this space for a long period of time and were buying something before they actually even understood the underlying technology.
All right. My background is I'm a data scientist by trade, but I'm really good at marketing, so I've excelled in this space, and most people know me for my content that I've put on the internet, and I'm a bit of an influencer online. So with that, I've been able to be great at marketing and get a lot of users to my applications. But I'm also a 3-time venture-backed female founder, and I'm not going to take up more time. But I made the Forbes 30 under 30. I don't know. That's my claim to fame.
What was the question, just to introduce ourselves? Oh, okay. Sorry, I was so fascinated by everyone's.
The question was to talk about your journey to how you got to where you are.
Okay, I was so impressed by everyone's journeys. So I got to where I am by accident. So I grew up in a tech family. My mom did cryptology in the Gulf War. She served 101 days twice. My father built data network centers and security protected everything at the Pentagon. My sister's a computer science engineer. My husband has been in tech since he was 16. I, on the other hand, appreciated it and wanted to benefit from it, but I didn't want to deal with it or build. Like Crystal's been coding forever. That was opposite of me. I just wanted to put on makeup and take pictures, and I did. I ended up going off and modeling, and that was my journey. My dad wanted to kill me when I dropped out of college. But around that time, dropping out of college, my dad said, well, you've lost your mind, but you at least need to start saving and buy these CDs and mutual funds and all these things. I just thought, I don't know what the heck you're talking about. I don't know who's watching my money, who's trading it, who's doing what. There's got to be something else other than what my old dad is suggesting. So I just Googled like new money or future of money or how to protect my money, and I stumbled across something called Bitcoin. And I read this thing, I didn't really understand this white paper, and I saw things, I didn't even know the word blockchain, because in the white paper I remember it saying blocks of information chained together, and I just thought, whatever, this is just some currency that I want to have, and I'm going to show my dad that I know, because I'm young, and I got it, and I don't have that Bitcoin anymore because I didn't know how to save passwords, but that was my mistake, and I've learned from that. And my dad did give me an I told you so, but that's how I got into it. Then around Thanksgiving, I remember everything went down. It was like $200, and I thought, holy cow, I like really screwed up here. And then I bought more, and I learned. And after that, I just kind of kept it in the back of my head. I didn't have this amazing group of women to chat with or cool people in the audience this didn't exist then. I was just modeling, so I went to my photo shoots and got my check, and I'd buy more Bitcoin, and that was it. It wasn't called cryptocurrency, it was just Bitcoin, there was nothing else. And then I unfortunately lost a loved one to an accidental overdose of opiates, and during his time in the NFL, he always said, Jess, can I smoke weed like the other guys? And I said, absolutely not, you'll lose your career, the NFL doesn't allow it, and like the DARE program says you'll be a gang member, so you can't. And he didn't, and I feel guilty for that, because I feel like I was part of the reason he took these opiates and he ultimately passed away. And that drove me down this rabbit hole of cannabis, alternative medication to painkillers. And so I started a cannabis company, monthly subscription service to medical marijuana in San Francisco. And I started to notice that suppliers were photoshopping lab results. And I thought, well, there's got to be some way to fix this. And my husband was a miner in the very, very early days, and blockchain became the topic of our conversations over dinner. So it was just a natural thought for me to say, let's fix this on blockchain. Let's start tracking these lab results, and hopefully when we can get a hold of the cultivators and the suppliers, we'll start tracking it on blockchain. And we did that for about 3 months, and then we realized what we were doing to protect ourselves was actually creating this whole new ecosystem that the entire cannabis space could benefit from. So that's how we started Paragon, by accident.
So you all run unique companies, and what are some of the unique challenges that you've faced, and how have you overcome them? And are there any that are specific, you think, to this industry?
Okay, yeah. We'll let you keep one. There are a lot of challenges of any new adoption, and I think we all are experiencing it. So for the first time ever, as Jessica was just saying, well, first there was Bitcoin, and then what else? And blockchain actually didn't even exist until a group of people at the Satoshi Roundtable came together and said, we have to come up with a better name for blockchain than Bitcoin. It wasn't blockchain yet, it was Bitcoin and Bitcoin. Actually, if you read Satoshi's white paper, it was a capital B and a lowercase b, and the two things were called exactly the same thing. It was very confusing, but you wouldn't be able to scale that into a technology if it were called the B word. So they changed it. It just went to block and chain. It was maybe 2 years later. But I think that as we see the technology emerging, early 2014 was the first ICO we ever saw with Mastercoin, and probably no one remembers that. 2015 Ethereum. Does anyone know how much the Ethereum ICO was?
15 million?
19 million, that was really close. $19 million for the Ethereum ICO. But we didn't pay attention yet either. Ethereum said, hey, we have a programmable blockchain. You can do something with it, smart contracts. That's interesting. And then the DAO came along, and if you remember the DAO was something to the tune of $168 million, and by far the largest hack that we've seen since, showing the biggest vulnerability and making everyone very accountable for what they had, showing us that this is the first time that very major funds have been raised. And at that point in time, if you watch through 2017, 2018, this explosion happened. And so all the way up through 2017, the sum total was something like maybe $1 to $3 billion. 2017 saw 6, and 2018, $24 billion for ICOs. I'm only bringing this up because when venture looks to fund something, it means that there's traction for a reason, and that reason is because of the usable software. I think though, if anybody, does anybody have a crypto kitty? Not to change it too much. I know I'm obsessed. I'm asking because if you have a CryptoKitty, you know that CryptoKitties was the very first application on Ethereum that basically choked the network. And it showed that this application software is actually not super usable. In fact, if you were running an ICO in Q4 of 2017, CryptoKitties threw a hairball into the network that choked your ability to raise funds. And that was really challenging. So at that point in time, every person who was building serious software decided we have to find something to build on that's scalable. What solution are we going to have if we really want to make real applications? So I think this year has been the beginning of what will become next year's year of the dApps, in my opinion. And so the journey I've seen is, for us as a company, we've struggled because we've raised these funds. We're very excited to get our users in our community on board, and yet our applications need something to be more usable. We moved on to the EOS platform. There are many that have the option for better technologies, scalability. Bitcoin also is a little bit inefficient in mining. I don't think that Satoshi would have ever fathomed how much money would be spent to mine Bitcoin, which in 2017, $400 million. So today it costs about $4,000 to mine a single Bitcoin, and that's in the cheapest places on the planet for energy. And it's just inefficient. We can talk about mining over cocktails later. But really, I just want to point out the application ecosystem evolving. And so in my opinion, where we are now is, for the first time, blockchain is truly usable in a scalable way in which consumers are going to get on board. So very excited that all of the companies working in the background who have innovated on identity and on the protocol layer are getting their groundwork laid. But here's the time for the application network, and messaging is coming. That's why we're building Sense.
Can I tell them about our idea the other night? Yeah. Okay, so CryptoKitties was what broke Ethereum. So we were thinking about building like Tinder for CryptoKitties, and we put it on EOS and see if we can break EOS. So the challenges was the question, right? You know, what's really interesting, and I'll put on my venture hat for a second. What's really interesting and I would say really challenging, and especially watching the market just fluctuate and the volatility fluctuate, is when I think back to, we have baby startups raising a lot of capital, and then they're being made instantaneously liquid, which means that you have people trading purely on speculation, not on product. And when you have that, of course you're going to end up with an inflated market, and then of course you're going to end up with a crash. And where I think we're leveling out now is to actually where these startups are starting to get valued at least less on potential and more on where they actually are. And in my opinion, that's actually going to create stability in the market. And so when I think about the difficulties with the venture hat is if you have a venture firm and your term isn't long enough, or your term is extremely long, all of a sudden you have to think about looking at these pumps and looking at these dumps, and instead of just betting on the actual company. And I think that we all got really excited about instantaneous liquidity and, oh my God, look, we can instantly trade out and I can double down on companies that I really believe in. But at the end of the day, also, because there's not real numbers or revenue or profit backing any of it, And because the user base is so low currently, it makes it a really challenging market. And so for me, I would say that's one of the biggest difficulties that we've looked at in the last year.
So SOMA is betting that 2019 will be the year of the dApps. And we're putting our users behind this, and we're putting a lot of resources into this. But at the same time, we have to look at these systems, lists, okay? Google, this is one example of lists that can be gamed. These algorithms can be gamed, and anyone who is going to throw enough money behind making sure that their links are ranking at the top are going to get all of the clicks and the traffic. And lists that are curated by a human are going to have human bias behind them. So, for example, editorialized lists of maybe the top YouTubers on YouTube, which it would be controlled by one person who holds the keys to the kingdom, who's going to get the exposure, or other types of lists for what we were talking about, pump and dump, like who's at the top of the charts this week in crypto. Can we trust the crowds? What they're buying, where's the validity? And so I think in the dApps, we're going to see these new models coming about with the platforms. So for example, SOMA is a platform, like I said, we have 6 million daily active users, and we're going to be, we're announcing our design thinking using a token curated registry to put the power into our users so that they can vote with their token, and they can vote things on to the list, and they can vote things off. And so it's going to be interesting to see, but I really want to address this problem, and I think it's a big challenge right now. But
I'm going to make this slightly interactive.
Yeah.
If you don't mind.
Yeah.
So when you talk about voting, I'd love for you just to talk a little bit more about like how you actually think voting will happen within your community. Because when we look at voting, I mean, we deal with voting every single day. Block producers, that's the way that you become a block producer on EOS, is you're voted in by the community. And still you're looking at a voting of less than 40% right now of the EOS have been staked and voted. And so you're looking at an extremely, what most people, in my opinion, if you look at EOS, it's a religion more than it is anything else. It's a community. And so even when you look at something that is as popular as EOS, for instance, you still have significantly low levels of voting, and it took us, 2 weeks to get to where the blockchain was even active because it needed a certain level of voters to actually kind of ignite. So I would kind of ask you a little bit, push back on that a little bit and be like, how do you expect your voting to really kind of function? Sorry, I stole the question.
Yeah, no, this is part of the design thinking process is going through this very human element. Like, what are people actually doing in these other systems, and what's the traction like? So part of this is empowering the users with tokens, with daily airdrops, daily mining features, and then in addition to that, giving them lots of push notifications within the app so that we can growth market this community to spend their tokens on voting. So within the messaging, like they could get, we have this bot that sends daily messages. Additionally, we have ads that run that update our users on what they can do. And then in addition to that, our users care about certain community efforts because we're large within the Middle East, and there's cultural standards and norms. For example, the Sharia compliance and how money is spent, or within the female user base with regards to modesty of not just dress, but language. So trying to, obviously there's going to be a balance, but we're looking into these models, and it's a challenge, So the question is, what's the biggest challenge? I don't have all of the answers, but this is the big question at hand, and I hope to work with the community of dApp developers out there to come up with creative solutions and continue to innovate with these systems. Yeah.
Okay, so the question was the biggest challenges that we've faced or I've faced. To be honest, the biggest challenges I've faced in both, well, running Paragon, I'm in 2 gray areas. So it's outdated regulations, to be honest. We're living in this world where people think that the DARE program was right when they said you smoke weed and you'll go to jail, and actually now people are in jail, but they shouldn't be. We're living in a world where our government is forcing us to halt innovation and go backwards and fit into this box that they want us to fit in. And all of us up here are entrepreneurs trying to create something. We need innovation, and we actually need support from our government to protect us. This is a world filled with a million trolls, and I know you ladies know. Like, we need protection, and that's my biggest challenge, is dated regulations. You can't make everything a security. You can't make everything a utility. You have to think back to what happened when YouTube came around, or Uber. You have to change regulations to fit for the future. So we're in this 2018, hoping that we can move to 2019 and not go back to 2007. Like, this is a little ridiculous in my opinion, but that's my biggest challenge. And stigma, I guess.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you. Can you guys talk a little bit about your process in launching the company and any tips or advice that you might have for the audience of someone who's looking to start a blockchain project, whether it's from fundraising to development to scaling? Any advice you have along those lines?
Sure. By the way, if anyone else wants to start first, we don't have to necessarily be in a line. Yeah, sure. So just to add to that, I think actually, in blockchain terms, we're more like in 1994, 1995, when like Katie Couric had the Today Show, and they were like, what does that little A with the circle around it mean? I think it's about, or like around, and like that was actually on the Today Show, and they were like, what is internet anyway? And literally they're asking this question, and that is where we are today. And so I think the question of where do you start is, well, we're really all on the ground floor. So congratulations, entrepreneurs. We all have a really equal start here. If you have been, I know, like, how many people are entrepreneurs starting your own business, or you have a current running business in technology, blockchain? Are you running an ICO? Just keep your hands up. Does anyone currently invest in, I know we're in a bear market, but anybody interested in buying tokens, or you're here because you're an investor? I just want, if you look around the room, just matchmake to these people, the ones that are running the ICOs right now, starting your companies. This is the first foundational part of it, building community. So I think that it's important that if you're starting, first of all, if you have a technology company already and you're considering blockchain, you've already well understood the challenges of finding developers that are knowledgeable in blockchain. Luckily, there are enough chains out there that if you are coding C++ or you're coding, any other language, you can find one, and or your developers can be like our amazing developers. Like, I think Angel is here in the audience. He moved from Ruby very rapidly into Solidity, very rapidly into C++, because that's what it takes. So, getting started is a matter of, first, what's my company model? Am I a technology company? Do I need the blockchain? And do I need a token? Really spend a long time asking yourself that question, because it doesn't always necessarily fit in. We were super fortunate. So Sensei was a product that already had 3 million users and 20 million tokens. We had an inter-network token. It was more like points. And so we said, well, what if we just put it on the blockchain? People want a value for it. How do we exchange it for a value? We decided to start a currency, cryptocurrency called Sense. It was a utility token, so we never used the word currency. Harley, re-record that part, and don't quote me on that. We learned along the way another very, very expensive lesson, and something for entrepreneurs. If you are getting started and you think you're going to run an ICO, The SEC is really, really diligently watching, and beyond that, they're creating regulation today, yesterday, the day before. Throughout our ICO, they had 2 statements that came out that radically changed the way that we operated. Even the taxes that came out, I'll wait until maybe tomorrow with Deloitte or someone like that, but when you look at the taxes have been already form-fitting the ability for them to start taxing crypto. Withholding tax is an interesting one when you're distributing tokens to your people. So I think getting into the space doesn't mean just capitalizing on the opportunity for this very open market, and in fact it's a bear market right now. So more than anything, just build. And I think we heard from the Cybercode twins earlier, really this is the time to build. It's an exciting time to build because we're not in a hype cycle. So if you are building, the chances are your project's a lot more legit, and we're really excited about seeing what that is. To me, that's kind of the start. Really also just look at your partners. Those are all the people in this room. Those are all the people that are going to be at the event tonight. The market is still dismally small. It's really crazy to think about, but we're so early that this is a very tiny community. I've been now traveling around the world, and sometimes these conferences have 40 people, and that's not because they're bad at marketing. It's actually just a symptom of having very few people who even understand what this is. They're like, oh, Bitcoin? That's that thing that you buy drugs with, right? Or that's the thing that makes you rich. Actually, right? And that was like last month. Yeah, that was last year. Now it's like that's the thing that made all my friends broke. But it's really. I was just at Equity ICO in Utah, and yet there are still fantastic people who are in this space, like Patrick Byrne, the Overstock CEO, who's now launching the first securities exchange, who has been the first person to take Bitcoin at retail, and has been on this journey for so long, and yet we're still so early. So I think the question of how do we start and where do we get started? Well, you're at the baseline. So I think just start by having conversations. Join the movement. Join the community. What'd you say? Cult? Religion. I think community is better. Yeah. Join.
Okay, so how do you get started? I can kind of give you an idea, at least, of what I look for when I'm looking at a company, because it's really pretty much three major pillars. So product, which is basically your tech, team, and partners. Those are like the 3 main things, in my opinion, that like any person that's going to start a company. Like partners could be who are you potentially going to partner with, who would you target. And team, clearly, like you want people that can actually go build what you're saying you're going to go build, and can actually go get the partners that you're saying you're going to go get. And then product, I think what we saw last year was we saw a lot of white papers. I think we're now starting to see a lot of products. People aren't just willing to invest in an idea anymore. People are really interested in actually investing in something tangible that's already built, that already has users, that already has some amount of revenue. And I think those are the 3 things that if I would say you're going to go build a company right now, would be my main focus.
Yeah, I agree. Have excellent partners and make sure you have a lasting relationship with them, because the #1 reason for startup failure is co-founder fighting. And then from there, just test and iterate and make data-driven decisions so you really can verify your business thesis, be that your token economics or just your business thesis. Test it, like verify it, try to get it to the 80th percentile.
I don't know. My advice for starting something in this industry, it's just like any other industry. You're building a company. I don't think that there's anything too magical. Just like any other company, you need to really strap up with lawyers because everything is changing all the time. Like in the middle of ICOs, new things come out or new ideas come out, and SEC is conflicting within internally. Find the best developers that you can find and make sure that they actually can code. And have a really good team. I have some of my team members here. These girls have their team members here. You want a team that's going to support you and be there for you. Kelly did some of our PR in the beginning. Like, have a good team and make sure you stick around. Crystal and Brock were some of the first people we met with getting into the space. Like, you want to really throw yourself into the space, but it's no different than any other industry. If you want to be a banker, you're going to go to all the banking conventions. It's super simple. Don't let anyone overcomplicate it. It's just a normal business. Yes, if you decide to do an ICO, you better really watch out. I did an ICO before there were any real regulations, watching the SEC fight back and forth internally, and it's a little scary. But as long as you have lawyers, I mean, I think that's the safest bet. For all of us up here being women, it was my idea to do an ICO because I knew as a woman I'd have to go up against VC funding, and there's not a lot of women that will invest into companies. You're going to have to face a lot of men, and I don't know if they're like intentionally doing this, but there's some bias. When you have an ICO, everyone really just cares about your team, your idea, your code, the product that you're building, and your mission. So make sure you have all of those checked off, and that's it. It's really simple.
Awesome. Jess, maybe we can start with you on one of these last ones. What do you guys think needs to happen in order to achieve more mass adoption? I know you said we're in 1994. How do we get to 2018?
Well, I think a lot of things need to happen. I think the first thing that needs to happen is people need to get educated. That's the first thing, coming to things like this, sitting on panels, learning from other people. Education is the first thing. I don't know, I think that it's going to become inevitable, mass adoption. It's the more that people learn, it's like when the internet was coming along. Like, that's such a weird thing to ask. Like, what do you think mass adoption, what will it take to have mass adoption? It's just gonna happen. Let's say that the government decides that they don't want us involved in blockchain. I don't know why that would happen. But if they don't want anything in blockchain or they don't want anything in crypto, that's more likely because they want to control our money. Everything will just go onto the dark web and will probably become really big and unstoppable. And then the government will just have to change their rules to we'll force the government to want to work with us. I mean, I don't know. It's weird. It's hard for me to answer. I just think that it's going to happen. What was it? You want?
Go ahead. Oh. You want to? Oh, okay. Evolve or die. Amazon, what was the domains that they're buying? I mean, Facebook, they have a blockchain research lab. It's just a matter of time. Once the larger institutions and companies are launching their blockchain products, I mean, didn't UPS recently launch a blockchain tracking system for shipping and tracking that sends notifications to the users? Bumblebee Tuna is another one that's launching a blockchain technology. So the enterprise is catching on. The consumer companies are catching on, and I think it's just a matter of time before this goes completely mainstream.
So I actually think that there are a handful of different things that need to happen before this is going to go mainstream, and I don't think that it's going to just happen without a lot of entrepreneurs putting in a lot of hard work. I think one of them is we need payment rails. Right now, Overstock.com is one of the few places where you can actually buy something tangible with cryptocurrency, not just like buy code or pay for an engineer. Who has used cryptocurrency in the room to actually buy something? Cool, love that. I just bought a cold plunge on Overstock.com using cryptocurrency. And let me tell you, that was a very painful process with zero customer service. And that, without that, then it's going to be really challenging for there to be serious mass adoption. I think we're starting to see big institutional players come in. I think we're starting to see universities put capital into the space, and I think that will also push adoption, that will push growth. But I think there's a lot of work that has to get done before we'll actually get to the place of mass adoption.
Emmy, I'm just going to counter you a little bit and say, hodl. This is coming from a really personal place, maybe of pain for me, because I started paying my rent with Bitcoin in 2014. as well as my hairdresser and literally anyone else who would take it. And I reflect on that now, and I'm like, you know, my husband Brock and I just raced a DeLorean for charity in the Gumball 3000, and we were up against all these supercars like the Lambos. It was very crypto cliche, and these guys actually had no clue really about crypto. It was really fun. We went because we wanted two things: one, awareness of cryptocurrency for very high net worth individuals, and two, who have a tendency to spend their money loosely, and two, awareness for charity. We ended up raising 50,000 pounds or so. This was in London, from just putting a Bitcoin logo on our car and donating to these children's funds. So we were driving this DeLorean, and we were like, you know, we're definitely the lowest cost car, but maybe the coolest in this whole rally. But then Craig Sellers, who had donated the car to us, it has a Satoshi license plate, which is why we decided to drive it, as well as a flux capacitor. He said, he's like, actually, I bought that car in 2010 for 200 Bitcoin. So I'm guessing that you might have one of the most expensive cars in the rally, and and Craig drove the car along with us. And so, you know, for me, where do we go? Do we want to hodl, and do we want to keep this maybe digital gold? Do we want to spend it? Maybe cryptocurrency isn't the end-all be-all application, actually. What I would say is buy more crypto kitties. And I'm not just saying that because crypto kitties are looking for love and they're all for sale. And in fact, if you visit us at the Sense booth tomorrow and on Wednesday, we are giving away crypto kitties as well as a lot of other fun things because they really do need new homes. They need to be adopted. A lot of them have unicorn horns. This is why I got into it. Buying digital assets is actually potentially one of the newest ways of adoption that's going to take hold, and I think the gaming industry does a lot for us. It's every industry that actually pushes forward because they need it, and gaming needs it. Gaming is the most usable form of digital assets that has been decades old. I mean, they've been trading digital assets forever, swords and gold and things like that. It's natural. So maybe digital assets can look like tickets, maybe the ticket to this conference. Maybe we have a new method of adoption that goes beyond trying to change all of our point of sale systems, because we know that the incumbents are going to have a really big problem with that. So, you know, just like you said, the rails, finally we have the ability for the first time ever to almost match the Visa network with transactions. Unfortunately, Ethereum tops out at 14 per second. EOS now is doing an average of 4,000 per second, and that's not because it's the capacity, but that's because it's as much as dApps are created today. So imagine if they were able to run a network like Visa. They can do 100,000 or more if we can scale. So I think mass adoption comes in new forms. Who knows what it's going to be? I do encourage spending your crypto on crypto, and the other reason why I say hodl is because if you are raising an ICO, to me, one of the biggest fallacies of the entire system in terms of ICOs is when everyone raised all their capital on crypto and then extracted it into fiat. Whoa. Good job. We didn't either, because we believe in the market in general, but we also believe in the technology. So we decided we would rather pay as many things as possible in crypto as we could until our accountants were like, hold on a second, this is really, really difficult. These wallets and hashes, we don't know how to handle it. But I think being the first adopters of this, we have to also think about how we stop extracting it and how we start circulating it as well. So beyond CryptoKitties, maybe your developers will take crypto.
I'm going to add one more thing. We also need like a stabilization of laws around how everything functions. That's the only thing that I actually felt like wasn't necessarily addressed. Like without kind of input from the government and input from what we can and can't do, I think that creates a lot of the volatility and will make it hard for this to actually gain mass adoption too.
Can I say one thing? About government? But yes, I agree, everyone should just put crypto into crypto. But about government, that made me think, this is actually up to us, not government, because when you think back of like when we went from gold to paper money, why did that happen, or who supported it? Government, because they knew they'd still be in control. Now we want to go from fiat to crypto, and who's not supporting it? government because they know that they won't be in control. If we as a community can show them we're responsible, we're supporting other companies, we're buying our groceries, we're paying our rent, we're doing normal things with crypto that we have, it's up to us, and hopefully government can catch up. Kind of a last thought.
Awesome. Before we open it up to questions, looking to the future, what do you guys think the greatest impact of this technology will be? And then if there's anything else that you want to share with the audience, I'm going to open it up as well.
Okay. I think that the greatest impact will be on us, to be honest. Like, blockchain will improve governance dramatically, and crypto will just give us the power to our own currency again, well, or for the first time. I think that's what will improve.
Yeah, I think we're going to see a lot of economic empowerment for minority groups, especially women in the Middle East, as they have gain access to wallets and diversifying their portfolio of having different cryptocurrencies, because at the end of the day, it does come down to having that economic power. And when we see a even playing field in the next 10 years, there's going to be a big societal impact, and I hope that we have a cultural responsibility as a result of this financial empowerment that we're seeing.
Part of me feels like it will really gain mass adoption and we'll see the largest impact where we don't even know it's there. Where it will actually just be in the backdrop. Like, how many people can explain how a Visa transaction actually happens and occurs? Okay, 1, 2, okay, like a couple. So how many people can explain how blockchain works? Okay, a couple more than can explain how Visa works. I think when we think about it as kind of helping us handle payments, a lot of that is going to happen in the background and are going to be things that we don't even understand or haven't like dived into to become educated on it, and just kind of occur.
Was this our last question? I'm really excited about this one because I would like everyone to take this question back with them if you are going out after this to the events, and ask it again. Like, what do you see as the future of how this is going to impact? How is blockchain going to impact our future is a great conversation starter question with this group, but also it lets you see into everyone's mind. So we have amazing artists who are here who are changing the world of art as we know it because of blockchain. We have amazing people in healthcare. We have amazing educators. Every single person, whatever it is that you're working on, can be impacted and will be impacted. And I think in terms of, there are 2 major technologies that are going to be the incumbent technologies that radically change the world as we get to experience it. And it's amazing because everyone in this room, and even the youngest people in this room, have been living at one point in an analog world and are now in a fully digital world. And that's a really important thing to think about, because you think that might have been the biggest transition of our entire history, of our lifetimes, but actually, I believe it's not. I think the next step is 2 things. 1 is blockchain, and 2 is the only other technology that is bigger than blockchain, which is AI. And we'll watch both of those 2 things intersect. And once we have autonomy on blockchain, whoa, we're just the little humans that are right now trying to make everything work. In our lifetimes, we're going to see every incumbent system radically change. And we think about that, and I kind of don't want to tread on it too darkly. I want it to actually be more light. Like, we're evolving the system. So government is going to evolve. It's not going to completely crash. We're not anarchists. Well, maybe not all of us. But we're in a situation where we have the opportunity to become a bigger and better, broader community. There's also the third thing, which I think is maybe the biggest part of it all, which is the global opportunity for a global economy. So we now, for the first time ever, have the ability to interact as a singular ecosystem. That's massive, because that means that, like Emmy said, where the impact is the smallest, or the impact is the largest where you see it the least. In the ecosystem we have today globally, 3 billion people still don't have access to basic financial services. So we'll start with the finance system, and we'll start with the payments, and that's really important. And the fact that I could send Bitcoin to someone overseas instantly, we already know the benefits. Like, we don't have to reiterate what the benefits are of this global economy. But those are the major transitions. I think, to me, that's the most exciting part, is seeing how every single person can leverage and be improved by this. And I think the very last one is human life in general. So we're going to create a system where we have a better quality of life because everything is accounted for. We see a lot of darkness of the blockchain side right now. There's a lot of dark web, and everyone has a little bit of fear. But I think that the transparency is going to be really huge for us. And so when identity gets on the blockchain, and I'm looking at you, Kelly, because you're bringing a new life into the world. And by the way, I'm really impressed and very happy to not only have 5 women, but a 6th woman or man, and said.
Woman.
Yes, perfect. We have 6 of us up here. Maybe 7. We'll decide who else later. And to me, this is the opportunity. Our children are now going to have better identity opportunity, and that's really a huge deal. And so hopefully you put your baby on the blockchain, and I hope that will you be one of the first? Of course. Yes, please.
We call her the Bitcoin baby.
Yeah, is her name Crypto?
It's a secret.
I'm just throwing it out there. If you name her Crypto Rose, I would be really happy.
Her first word's going to be meow.
Yeah, the first word is Bitcoin. I do think, though, that identity and potentially marriage, and not even potentially, actually, I'm married on the blockchain. We have a blockchain wedding that happens every year, and you can see Brock and my marriage has been unofficially put on the blockchain. We don't have a system behind it. We'll open source it at some point in time. But again, it's another opportunity we get to innovate on. So I'm really passionate and interested in helping people to take control of their relationships and their lives, and that's just something that it's a side project. Maybe that's a business one day. So that's it. I just think that everything, if the basic answer of what is blockchain going to do and how is it going to change, everything is going to change.
Love it. Thank you, ladies, so much. I want to quickly thank the 2 women organizers of this conference. Thank you so much, Allison and Emily. You did such a phenomenal job today. Thank you.
Thank you, Kelly. We do have time for a couple of questions. If anybody wants to ask some questions of these incredible entrepreneurs, founders, CEOs. Yeah. Okay.
This is a real simple question. Why is this just subdivided for women of crypto when this should have been like the platform tomorrow? I mean, that literally.
Thank you.
Please tell me this is streaming. Everybody in my company, I'm sitting copying notes, trying to get everything. It was just an amazing panel. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. We are streaming it, actually, that camera over there. The Sense team has this recorded and will be on our YouTube channel as well as streamed right now. So all that CryptoKitties talk is live.
Any other questions? Coming over.
We could get like little heads, and each of us could be a different crypto kitty.
Am I pimping the CryptoKitties too much? I think, I actually was with the founders in Hong Kong, and I was convincing them they need to move to EOS, and they're like, do you know how hard genetics on the blockchain are? We already perfected DNA. We're not moving chains. But yeah, they agreed. They need more opportunity.
Hi, I have a quick question regarding cryptocurrency as a real currency. Do you see the adoption starting from actually south of the globe, where there are countries with their fiat currencies clearly not working, for example, Venezuela and then Zimbabwe, as the motivation as a need, instead of something of their liking? For example, people from the more developed country, they understand the technology, they would use it, but on the other side, it's more like they don't have another choice, that they are pushed to adopt. So if there's any comment on this subject, thank you.
Yeah, I'd love to hear from anyone who wants to comment on Venezuela, because I'm also really fascinated on this. What I'll comment on is Kenya. So Kenya, to me, is probably the most advanced system on the planet in terms of their financial lives. They have 55%, I think now, over 50% of their total global Kenyan GDP is cryptocurrency called M-Pesa, and that was, like you said, it was because of necessity. The M-Pesa is actually not really even a cryptocurrency or a token so much as it is a unit of value wrapped up in a cell phone minute. And so the largest telecommunications company out there in Kenya is found that the people were trading cell phone minutes for bread and other goods with each other, that was their unit economic, that was the most valuable to them. It was more valuable than their local currency because they couldn't get a bank account. And when they did, the bank took 10% of every transaction. So they were like, there has to be a better way. And Bitcoin wasn't it either because it's inaccessible. So they traded their cell phone minutes, and now Kenya is leading the way in digital currency. And you know, coming up on its tails, I think other underdeveloped nations have seen that they have a requirement for this, but they haven't done it organically. Now things like Petro have come along. So I love somebody else's perspective on Venezuela and the Petro recent $5 billion ICO.
Go ahead.
I don't really have much to say about Venezuela, but what I can talk to a little bit is what Bancor has done. I don't know if anyone has followed what Bancor has kind of done is they've gone into small communities. I don't know where. Do you know where?
Well, they started in Israel.
They started in Israel, and basically what they did was they initially came in and basically what we would consider airdropped tokens, but they originally started as paper money and then moved it to digital money and just wanted to see like what would happen if we airdropped it and we made partnership deals with different markets and different vendors and then tried to get people to start using it. And it very quickly picked up in all of the small communities of like 2,000 to 5,000 people. And they found really great success where otherwise these communities didn't actually have like a currency that they were trading with. So that I found quite interesting, but I'm sorry I can't quite speak to Venezuela.
Yeah, I was actually gonna say exactly the same thing as you, but I can go off just based off something here in the US. It's not Venezuela or Israel, but it's in the US. If you think about, I don't know how many of you have kids right now, but your kids are in college. They're probably focused on college and sports and not getting a job right now. And they don't have a lot of money in their bank accounts. And I don't know if you know or not, but the banks will charge fees for not having enough money in your bank account. I think that it's a necessity for us to start having our own money and saying, if I only have 1 Bitcoin or a fourth of a Bitcoin, no one should charge me a fee. That's keeping the poor poor. So it's a necessity here as well.
We have time for one last question. Who do we got?
Sorry, it's not so much of a question as I think there were people behind us who could speak to the Venezuela aspect, and we were really hoping, since this is all about community and building and learning, like if you could share.
Give the mic.
Hello, my name is Felipe Cano, and I'm from Colombia, so I understand exactly what's going on with Venezuela. I happened to meet the ex-president of Venezuela, and in reality, what happened with Venezuela, first of all, I would like to tell you after I finish what I'm doing, because it's related to Venezuela, because it's the contrary of what I'm doing. First, Venezuela, in my opinion, is a fraud, because Venezuela is backing this Petrocoin with the oil reserves, but not everybody understands what are the oil reserves of Venezuela. The oil reserves of Venezuela are very deep oil reserves that are almost impossible to take it out, basically, and they have to send the oil to the United States to refine it because it's too expensive, because they have a lot of sulfur. So Venezuela has been in a dictatorship for almost 14 years with a high inflation. So basically, this guy Maduro came with the idea. The idea is not bad. I don't know if you read the white paper. It makes sense. It's very social oriented. But you have to live there and understand what is going on. It's almost impossible. Maybe it's a saleable, executable idea for the people who do not understand the oil industry or what is coming with the clean energy industry. So basically, is what is happening.
Thanks, Felipe.
Thanks.
I'm really, I'm excited that you gave us that explanation, and thank you so much. And by the way, you are working on a great project as well as Constantina here, Constanza, my apologies, but Constanza is another beautiful, amazing female entrepreneur who's working to innovate in the art space. And I'm really excited to see you both here. I wanted to just answer that question on Venezuela and have someone else's perspective, because I do feel that there is a potential capitalization on underdeveloped nations when it comes to certain things like these ICOs. So, I think on a final closing, one of the most important things is for the white papers that still are all out there, read them thoroughly if you are going to do your diligence. Read the terms, but if you weren't aware of the Petro ICO, it's $5 billion, and that's the largest one in comparison to the only other large one was EOS at $4 billion last year. So, as we're embarking on all of these projects, see what you're really passionate about. What do you really want to back? Do you want to back oil? Do you want to back, younger entrepreneurs? What is your passion? Do you want to back art? And just read the disclaimers up front as well.
Thank you, Crystal. You always have such poignant insights and absolutely eat up every word that you share with us. So huge thank you to all of you, especially to Kelly Weaver, Melrose PR. You were such a huge support today. I appreciate all of your coordination and help with everything, and to the rest of her team that's here. And that's a wrap for us today. I want to give a shout out to Crystal. She is hosting. Crystal's hosting the opening event tonight, which I think is at 7 p.m. What's the location called again?
The Conga Room, and I think it's at 8, but you can come and see us at 7.
Okay, 8 p.m.
You have tickets for drinks on your badges, and if not, come and see us.
Also, Emily is speaking on the main stage tomorrow. Crystal is speaking on the main stage also tomorrow. And yeah, that's a wrap for us. Thank you again so much for coming out. Again, Women of Crypto. We'll see you next time. Thank you.
And guys, I just want to say one last thing before we all walk away. This whole thing wouldn't have been put on without Allison Berger over here. So if we can give her a big round of applause. Many tireless hours making this all happen.
Thank you.